Ready to start our session on building bridges from India to the Mediterranean, IMEC and beyond. And I'm glad to mention that this session is organized in cooperation with ORF in India and the Policy Center for the New South. Three think tanks, we launched a year ago a trilateral initiative to build bridges on our research, to build bridges on our annual event, to build bridges on our future leaders, and from exactly like the title, from India to the Mediterranean and to Morocco. So the three think tanks are hosting this session on the new bridges. The bridges of today are projects to enhance regional connectivity, technological development and sustainable trade, and the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, which was mentioned several times this morning, which links Asia, Europe through the Middle East, is a clear and tangible example. But where do we stand now on this project? How realistic is to talk about bridges, interconnectivity at a time of war, at a time in which bridges are exploded and broken? So this will be the topic of our session. I have wonderful group of friends, can I say to all of them. On my right, Ebtesam Al-Ketbi, President and founder of the Emirates Policy Center. And on the other side, Karim El-Enawi, Executive President of the Policy Center for the New South. Samir Saran, President of Observer Research Foundation and curator of Raisina, which will be in March next year, while the Atlantic Dialogue, the Morocco event, will be in December. And then Kadri, on my left, Kadri Tastan, non-resident senior fellow at the German Marshall Fund. So, we will have two rounds of questions. The first one will be mainly on the meaning for your country of this project of IMEC, and the second one, in the second one, we will try to discuss risk and vulnerability of this project and how to mitigate risk and vulnerability. Samir, how does IMEC fit within India's role as a major global actor? And to what extent it is a response to the Belt and Road Initiative? I know you like the second question, but I give you
and luckily
as an opportunity to start your show.
And luckily I have 38 minutes to respond to that.
No, you have 1 minute and 55 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay. No, thank you, Paolo, and thank you for putting this together, and great to be in Rome. You know, for sitting in India, IMEC has many meanings, and certainly it is not a response to the Belt and Road Initiative. No meaning fits the IMEC into a contest between the BRI. I think IMEC is a natural infrastructure and connectivity project with multiple layers that in many ways is preparing for India's transition to a $10 trillion economy in less than 10 years. It will be adding $6 trillion a year to global GDP. It will be adding $3 trillion a year to trade GDP, of which roughly $2 trillion will flow through the waters. And a large part of those $2 trillion will be flowing into the European, American and the Middle Eastern markets. So in some sense, the IMEC is a necessary infrastructure, both ideas infrastructure as well as physical infrastructure for the impending $10 trillion India that will be the single largest shaper of global futures in the coming decade. No one will put more additional goods, services and money into the global system than India in the next 10 years. We are going to have to partner with countries in the Middle East, which are already a robust part of our story, with Europe, which has been a historic part of our story, and USA, which is the troublesome part of our story. But from the Mid-Atlantic to the Indo-Pacific, that's India's future. We will have to link these four water bodies, the Mediterranean and the Atlantic, as well as the Indo-Pacific, and that completes the arc in which India's $10 trillion journey that has already started a few years ago will in many ways be strengthened and will reach fruition. But I just want to add 3 quick points. We are not going to wait for peace for progress. In fact, let me tell you, despite wars, despite hostilities, despite conflict, trade has always found its way. It is connectivity that has been found challenging. Let's invest in connectivity. The folks who want to trade will do the deals. They are not going to wait for peace. Show them the road and money will move. Show them the ports and goods will land. Show them the pipelines and data will flow. Trade does not wait for peace. Progress moves on in spite of everything else, because that's been the story of human evolution. By the way, I'm in no ways diminishing what is happening. I think we need resolution, we need peace, we need a ceasefire, we need a human approach to resolving it in a sustainable manner. But connectivity can help us with many other endeavors, and that is what we are trying to do. Let us connect each other. Let us build a framework that makes us proximate neighbors, having a common stake in peace and stability.
You took 10 seconds more, but you already answered the second question. So, because you went into the constraints. No, thank you very much, Samir. Ebtesam, the Emirates play a major role in, as a world energy supplier, a vital travel and transport hub. Clearly, you are looking at this project as an important element of your strategy. Could you elaborate a little bit on how IMEC fits into the strategy of the Emirates to play a major role in global economic and politics?
Thank you, Paolo. Paolo, this is one of the corridors Emirates is involving with. There are many corridors, and when Gaza war stopped that one, we moved to another, what we call a development corridor through Iraq and Turkey and others. So, but this one, as Samir said, this is, I look at it as each component of that played a complementary role for others. Some of competed countries, okay, can complete each other's in the roles. UAE has its vision in renewable energy, diversification of economy, being a hub of AI and cybersecurity, being a hub for logistics. UAE is having a leading role in logistics. And this is when you take this corridor from India through UAE, Saudi, and to Europe, you see each one of them play a central role in that. For UAE, of course, this is enhance its role, but it doesn't mean that UAE has no role without this corridor. It has many roles in other areas, in Africa and other. UAE, by the way, is in Belt and Road, and at the same time with this corridor and with I-2U2 also. So there are many initiatives. This can enhance the trade, okay, and with the robust economy UAE having, also can enhance, can attract investors. And we are talking about regional stability. This means more cooperation between all of those to make the region stable, and all the speeches which is address the need for ceasefire in the region. This is really, if we want that corridor is moving forward, reaching to Europe.
Thank you, Ebtesam. Kadri, Ebtesam mentioned the other corridor. She mentioned the Development Road Initiative, the one that goes through Iraq and Turkey, as something that the Emirates are looking after as well. Turkey is not into IMEC, and of course, in enhancing his role as a hub in the region, is supporting the other project, the Development Road Initiative. Is there any, let me use the word competition, but any kind of competition between the two projects, and which role is Turkey willing to play?
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Go on, let's see, because at the beginning...
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Because I have the impression that...
at the very beginning it doesn't work, to see if you're
perfect.
ready.
It's working. Well, thank you very much, Paolo, and thanks again for inviting me. Well, I think I will come back to this development road corridor, development project, but let me first maybe focus on globally how Turkey looks at some of these connectivity issues, okay? Let's be clear, this is a really old dream in Ankara, becoming an energy transit hub. So it's a really, really old dream and partially realized, unfortunately. There was old dream of bringing, from Russia, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Iran, Iraq, and potentially from East Med, which didn't happen. So, but Turkey is still playing a transit role, and the Azeri gas became even much more important, of course, with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And since the China, of course, became a kind of manufacturing superpower and invested in the BRI, of course, the interest in the middle corridor, because you have to say that the connectivity's name in Turkey is middle corridor until this IMEC happened, that I will come back to this issue. So, of course, the interest increased there, and with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we saw an incredible decrease, of course, on the northern road. So the search and need for, of course, no new routes, alternative increase, and Ankara sees this as a great opportunity to finally not only become an energy transit hub, but also a corridor for regional transit hub. So this is, but let me to precise that this is not only an economic interest. Ankara has been looking for reaching the Central Asian Turkic states for a long time. So this is a way also for Ankara to connect with those countries. And of course, there is also this motivation that Ankara and many other, even the Europeans and the Westerns, they think that this connection potentially will maybe decrease the dependence of those Central Asian countries on both Russia and maybe even in Iran. So Turkey has developed many projects. Istanbul Airport, the big Istanbul Airport, is one of the projects that is important that can serve for this purpose, basically. There are also many other, bridges that are connecting the both sides of Bosphorus. Their underwater railway, again connecting the both sides in Istanbul. So Ankara sees itself, one is look at the map, see its strategic position. But this is, of course, because in your description of this panel, there is nearshoring, friendshoring, there's a kind of, we see that this restructuring of supply chain, and Ankara is aware of this and has many other potential, actually, strength. It has developed, quite well developed energy interconnections, major infrastructure, and of course, and also quite well integrated, let's say, in the European value and supply chain. Because Turkey, well, despite problematic political relations, Turkey is in a custom union, is quite well integrated, as I said, in the value chains, and let me to underline this, the connectivity is not just constructing the roads, right? You should also need a regulatory arrangement, and this will help to create kind of really attractive connection. So in this sense, the custom union directly or indirectly improved enormously Turkey's standards and norms in line with the European ones. So in this sense, Turkey has also this strength as well. I don't know if I'm beyond my time, Paolo. Just tell me, please stop me when I'm, but
no,
I will.
It's fine, because you merged actually the two questions in one. So go ahead and you won't have a second round. But
Okay,
good.
That's great. But let me, another strength that I said is that Turkey has a good connection with those Central Asian countries. And we saw that there is a huge increasing interest of the European on those countries, and mainly, of course, is because of raw materials that exist on those countries, but it's also an opportunity maybe to pull away those countries a bit from Russia. So there is a huge potential for Ankara in a kind of world of, let's say, reshoring of the global supply chain. I think Turkey is emerging as an important destination, but let's keep maybe this friendshoring for the second round, because obviously the relations, I mean the geopolitics, they will define more and more this kind of
Okay, so I will give you a few words on friendshoring at the end, but now let me move to Karim. Karim, as mentioned, the Russia invasion of Ukraine on one side, and then the Red Sea crisis have shown, there was no need, but has shown even more that how North Africa integration into global value chains has become a vital priority to absorb geopolitical shocks. And of course, your country is leveraging its strategic position to become a major bridge between Europe and Sub-Saharan Africa. Can you summarize, can you describe the major project that Rabat has developed to this aim?
Well, thank you, Paolo, and a pleasure to be here back in home. Let me say a few words about the spirit, the context, and then I'll come to more specifics about Morocco. I think there is a paradox, which is we're seeing on one side fragmentations and the fierce blows to the multilateral system, and on the other side, a strong willingness of countries to engage with the rest of the world. There has never been as much recently. I mean, trials and projects of integrating, of cooperation. So on one side you have the fragmentation, and the other side you have lots of excitement, particularly in the New South, to cooperate more and do things, and IMEC is part of that. It's an interesting sort of double movement. I think it has to do with the fact that policies in countries have already anticipated the fact that the globalization and the multilateral system, as we know it, particularly the WTO and other institutions of the like, will not be any more credible regulators. So it's a critical juncture, I would say. And the countries that are the incumbent, particularly Europe, which are sort of more destabilized than the New South by this change, because they were the main beneficiary of and the promoters, and also for moral high grounds, etc., are more destabilized than the New South. Italy is a particular case in point. The southern part of Europe are more comfortable with these new sort of spaces that are being created. There will be failures and there will be successes. IMEC, I don't know. What I can tell you is that countries need to organize themselves. And their ambitions, of course, but they need to be matched by policies. And you mentioned Morocco. This was organized in a different sort of institutional setup, which was the setup before these sort of fragmentations that we're seeing, particularly in two sectors, automobile and aeronautics, where the country now is exporting close to 700,000 cars and having most of the suppliers of the large airplane makers in Morocco, so integrated in their value chains. Let me remind you, Paolo, that these are private sector decisions. They are, of course, governments put in place the conditions, but they remain private sector conditions, private sector decisions. So whatever you do, your macroeconomic policy, the stability of your exchange rate, the rigor of your fiscal policy, the level playing field, the business environment will remain important factors for the capital to allocate itself and to enter those value chains. I think there is a natural, for Europe and in particular, there's a natural sort of area of cooperation, which is the Mediterranean and Africa in general. And of course, IMEC gives it a sort of deeper strategic, depth, but let us see. I think, so those 2 points, the context is changing, so it's time, high time for foreign policy makers to reassess, rethink the strategic value of their partners. They have been reweighted because of this, let us call it, ongoing revolution in terms of, in a way, changing the world we were used to and the rules of engagement, etc. So I see this as a response, as an attempt of a response. It's a sort of fair of initiatives. There are so many initiatives. Everybody wants to be the hub of everybody. So we end up with just hubs, but hubs, and then let us see what it's hubs and spots, whatever. So I think policies, rigor, predictable government, reasonable government, the rule of law within countries will remain key parameters. Let us be careful not to throw the baby with the water. It is still, there is rationality in the allocation of private capital around the world, and it will remain. There is so much government can do. They can set infrastructure, but the policies, the soft component of these projects will remain fundamental. And I think the success you mentioned about Morocco has a lot to do with that, and particularly the fact, to be more specific, that we have 2 free trade agreements, one with Europe, so it works, as Samir mentioned, and one with the US. So those companies that are producing, integrating, and including Morocco as part of their value chains, are able to serve those markets, notwithstanding more than 55 bilateral and trade agreements with countries.
We still have 10 minutes, and I will ask you to comment, trying to get a little bit more into a realistic view. Because, and I will start from what Karim said at the end. Okay, these are private sector projects first, and there are so many. The reality is there are so many. And they are, even if we say no, they are in some way competing. If we say that the Emirates want to be an hub, but also Turkey wants to be an hub, and Morocco can be an hub, and Italy wants to be an hub, everyone wants to be an hub. And clearly, when everyone wants to be an hub, you want to be an hub competing with someone else. And if the roads go one way, on the other way, you are a hub or you are not an hub. And also, India is an engine of growth, you mentioned, but China is still an engine of growth. And when you mention India as an engine of growth, you are competing with China as an engine of growth. So, how does this go back to the real world? So, in an ideal world, in the world of fully fledged globalization, we could have as many corridors as we wanted.
If I may, Paolo, one word, I think nobody wants to be left out. So everybody is hedging and putting his eggs everywhere. So that's the spirit.
And one way not to be left out is to promote or to support something else, something competing. So that's, I want to get your comment on this. Samir, let's start this way.
2 short points. One, I think all of the countries who want to be a hub will be hubs, but for very specific purposes. For example, if you're looking at trade finance, if you're looking at logistics, if you're looking at container movement, if you're looking at certain other services required for trade, I think UAE is going to be a big hub. It's not going to be a market to absorb the goods, but it is going to be someone that is going to ensure the movement of goods, finance the movement of goods, secure the movement of goods, move the goods, digitally monitor them and make them reach the final. So I think they are all hubs. Turkey could be an interconnecting hub where multiple roads, belts and roads meet and redistribute to different parts. Could be Europe, could be Central Asia, could be their own region. So I think all of these countries could be hubs, and I don't think there's any competition there. But all of them will have to eventually develop niche offerings that make them more important in that particular sector than others. They will obviously be doing a variety of activities, but each will necessarily have to focus on a couple of areas where they can really have a competitive advantage and a unique offering vis-a-vis anyone. So that's the first point. All are hubs, but please choose the domains that you want to be a hub for. You don't have the market size that the Chinese or the Indians or the Americans or the EU as a collective have. You're all going to have to work on making money from movement of goods rather than procuring those goods. So that's the first point. The second point, again, I think this is not a zero sum. Movement of goods do not recognize Belt and Road or IMEC or North-South Corridor or any other such infrastructure. They recognize the buyer and the seller. And everything else in between is efficiency and market forces. So your governments can say that we will not join the Belt and Road, but the private sector company will use the ports and will use the ships and will use the same routes if they are more efficient, if they are priced right. So market dynamics decide the best route to take. The buyer and seller decide the transaction. And I think that's the point. But to just complete the second point, I think what is equally important is that there is a role for governments besides just drawing a line on the map. Just saying that this is a new route means nothing. Are you willing to give incentives and subsidies to catalyze private sector investments to make those happen? And two, are you willing to invest into creating markets that are going to use those routes? And I think we have typically seen that the Chinese model worked where the governments were able to underwrite those models. Where they were not, they become white elephants and they are dead. So many Belt and Road projects have failed because China could not guarantee the market for it. So I think there is a cautionary tale that we should be more market and less government as we come out with these new projects.
Good point. Ebtesam, I have to be on time because the next chair is myself. So I have to be on time for the next chair which I'm chairing as well. So please help me, Ebtesam. Your comments.
Women always follow the rules and be polite. See the men what they did? They left only 7 minutes for us. So I will not be polite.
No, 7 minutes for the three of us.
So you want me to...
comment on Samir replied, said...
Look, Paolo, okay. You cannot remove politics from this. And we all know that there is competition between Chinese and the American in this region and this corridor parallel to that corridor. But countries involved in that should be also smart how to get or to benefit from that, not be in that trap of competition or align with this side or that side. And this is, I think, the Gulf is which they did. But there is also something important. Exclusion from one player on that road can turn him to be a spoiler. And this is, I think you were in our conference where the Iranians said, okay, they are going to weaponize this corridor. They are not part of that. And this has happened because of that. So exclusion, how to make this corridor win-win for everybody, for the governments, for the private sector. The more you engage more sectors, civil society, okay, because this is it's not only about governments, not only private sector, it's about also civil society to be, the more you make it more successful. It's maritime, they can benefit from maritime infrastructure, which can enhance land connectivity. Okay, so division of labor can be applied on that corridor. Each one of those component, I'm talking about country component, will have a role. This will make it also more successful and sustainable. And you have to put in your mind black swan scenario. Like when this happened, the IMEC, nobody anticipated that Gaza war will happen or other Lebanon war would happen, right? So you have to put in your mind that, so what if that happened? How can you manage what's happening? that you're moving that way. I'm saying that in Gaza, you should turn the corridor to go to other part, so you make it reaching Europe. And Europe, this is also a problem, Paolo, because Europe with its bureaucracy, I'm talking about EU, regulation, many things, we have discussed this in Madrid. How can, when it comes to Europe, what Europe is going to do? Division of labor also applied in that. There's competition between European in this. So not only in our part, also in your part, what is the plan to make it successful?
Thank you, Ebtesam. Karim, Samir mentioned at the beginning that war will not stop projects, big projects. But we also mentioned that these projects are private sector funded. How can we mobilize the private sector in today's volatile context in the region? Do you think that would be feasible? Would you agree with what Samir said at the beginning?
No, Samir said war does not stop trade, which is different to war does not stop this project. Two different things.
Okay. Would you agree with the
Trade
rephrasing?
continues irrespective of war.
Would you agree with the rephrasing of Samir's statement? With both, the previous one and the rephrasing. Please, Samir. Karim.
I don't know, really. I mean, what I can tell you is that this dynamic is there. We don't want to be left out, that there is a sort of souk of initiatives. And that because countries feel that the UN is not delivering anymore, the United Nations system, which were our community, our cooperative, has been affected. And so it doesn't cost much to be part of it, by the way. Country reach out to you, I'm interested. At the same time, I will be very careful, I'll come back to that on the war dimension. I think it's a more risky word, so you have to be equipped, prepare. You have to have solid internal fronts. You have to have a strong, cohesion in societies, which is not the case in many. So this is the movement that is happening at the global level and within society. It's all interlinked. I don't think these kind of initiatives are responses to all those challenges. They are attempts, and there will be trials and error, but I don't think we can escape from dealing with the wars, dealing with the, the peace and security system that was so hard to build in the 20th century. We need this, so I don't think you can oppose those two. So it is something we need to take care of, something we need to nurture, and we have been negligent. You said this in English? We have neglected this system for many reasons. I will be very cautious and very careful, and I think this kind of initiatives will succeed if there is behind it shared values and things that go beyond just trade, I think, if it is to make a difference. Otherwise, I don't think they will be sustainable. And I'll conclude on that, Paolo. This is also the shared challenges. We share all the same challenges, demography, climate, technology, our adjustment to this very more complex and fragmented world. So when we share a challenge, it gets us closer, I think. And these are, but it has to be, it has to have a moral sort of high ground behind it for it to be sustainable. And I think in many countries, we have these preconditions, but it will need more work, it will need the patience, but it's needed and it can't be replaced. Thank you.
Thank you. Kadri, you mentioned you wanted to add something on friendshoring, and because as Samir said, trade is going fast.
You can take a bit more.
trade on a regional base is increasing as opposed to global trade.
Correct.
And these corridors are corridors which connect region, are not at all, are also within region, but connected 3 regions. So what's your comment on the impact of reshoring and friendshoring to this big project of bridges?
I have 12 seconds. I have to.
No, you can have
important.
20. I will talk to the next chair to give you 15 seconds more. Go ahead.
Thanks. Well, let's be honest. Those are not only geo-economic projects. They are also geopolitical projects, right? So, in this sense, I think is this frustration, this feeling of being bypassed or marginalized or not taking into account all this kind of projects, especially I was invited to talk about why Turkey criticized IMEC and why, and all these are related, friendshoring, the perception, and obviously even for the private capital, finally at the European level, given, for example, global gateway, the political direction is important. I mean, the Commission and the European member state, they will give a direction, and the European financial institution, they will follow, and the private sector will probably follow. We are not anymore in a world that the private capital is deciding to where to go. Thus, I will end here.
Please join me in thanking our speaker in this panel. Thank you very much. And